All right, guys. What's up, guys? Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in again. We had a little bit of technical issues, but again, if you don't know, I'm Colin Burnett.
And I am Norman Lee, and we got Adrian back in the house. What's going on, man?
Man, I'm glad. I'm glad to be back, and hopefully you guys can hear me this time.
Yeah, we got you loud and clear.
Yeah,
It's a whole lot better.
100% better.
Yeah, so we're going to just jump right into it, guys. We know that this is a little bit different than what we typically kind of do. We without doing the intro, we're just going to jump right into it since we already done that probably about 45 minutes,
Yeah.
50 minutes ago. So we're just going to jump right into it. So Adrian, can you tell us? We're going to kind of go over the same little questions and stuff that we already asked since we couldn't. We was only getting bits and pieces of it. But when you started out, did you start out more saltwater or did you start out more freshwater?
Yeah, I mean, so that's actually, man, that's a common question I get asked, because a lot of people, they see, the different stuff I do on social media, and they know that I live up here in the Northeast. But for me, if any of you guys know much about New Jersey, there's not a whole lot of bass fishing going on in the state of New Jersey,
Right.
but saltwater fishing is really big, and it's been really big in my family for a long time. And I grew up as a little kid, saltwater fishing, and that's pretty
Right.
much all I did, and it's actually funny. I mean, up until I got into college, you put bass fishing on TV, and I turned it off. It wasn't something that honestly I wasn't really attracted to, because I really didn't understand the competitive side to it.
Yeah.
Well, once I got into college, that's when I realized, hey man, there's collegiate bass tournaments. Let me do them, and man, I'm an athlete.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of sports. I've played a lot of sports over the years, and I really just grew to love the competitive aspect of bass fishing.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I've noticed is that every angler, it doesn't have to be pro angler or anything like that. There's always that competitive
Oh,
atmosphere, and especially for us people that are older and stuff like that. That I was a catcher for 14 years, and my knees can't handle, and my shoulder can't handle throwing a baseball, but
oh,
I
I
still
know.
have that competitive edge that. I don't care if Norman and I are out on the boat. I still want to beat Norman.
Oh, hey, and if I was in there too, I would have beat you boys too, boy.
That's right.
I
So
think you just called me old, though, man. What's up with
I truth hurts sometimes.
Hey, you gotta
So
live with it, Norm.
that?
that's right. Hey, I do have a question. So, is there any kind of baits or techniques that you use for like salt water that you've been able to transition into to bass fishing?
Man, so it's weird. Like you see different trends happen. Like I mean, we were trolling umbrella rigs for 20 years, and then 10 years ago, it showed up in the bass fishing scene, and
Right.
all of a sudden, you've seen what it did. So there are certain techniques. I'm not gonna lie. I literally about 2 weeks ago, I took a Berkeley stunner out here on the saltwater, and I caught the crap out of mahi mahi on it. So,
It's
so there
awesome.
are different things that you can do that are fun. I think the biggest similarity between the two is saltwater fish are a lot of them are pelagics, right? A lot of them are migratory fish. They're constantly moving. Well, I feel like really over the years, the last 2, 3 years of forward facing sonar, people are really starting to understand really how nomadic these fish really are, these freshwater bass. And that's been the truth all along saltwater fishing. Um, so I really feel like that's kind of helped me. I've been
Right.
fishing open water for bass for a really long time. I don't consider myself to be a bank beater. I'm one that's always out there in the middle somewhere. And, I've been doing that, way before forward facing sonar, and I think that's the biggest similarity.
Yeah.
Right. Now, since you brought up the forward facing sonar, um, have and which Norman and I we've talked about this because I grew up in Nashville. We live in Chattanooga,
Okay.
and we see Wheeler going up and down Chickamauga all the time. Even in his incognito boat that he
Oh
has
yeah,
out
he's got to burn some gas, so he's got some tax write offs, man.
Yeah.
there. So, but what I've noticed was since forward facing sonar at the beginning stage of it, like the bass had kind of did move out, and which with fishing Chickamauga and stuff like that. I mean, Chickamauga, if you're not fishing ledges, you're not fishing Chickamauga. So,
Yeah.
um, but I've noticed since like the past couple of years, since more people has gotten it on their boat, I've noticed that the fish have kind of like transitioned with it, and they've kind of start pushing back up. Have you kind of noticed anything like that?
I mean, the biggest thing what you got to realize is that there are always fish that live shallow, right?
Yeah,
And for the longest time, all them fish that lived shallow got split up amongst a field of boats or got split up amongst of a bunch of locals, and now with the pressure not being on the bank anymore, I still think it's your same bass living up there. I just don't think they're getting the pressure like they used to.
that
I
makes a
mean,
lot of sense.
just think about it, man. I mean, back 15 years ago, there wasn't anybody out in the middle of these places, and
No,
now everywhere you look, that's where everybody's fishing. So I just feel like naturally, the bass aren't getting as much pressure up shallow. And this goes for, places all over the country. And that's why you're seeing guys like Andy Morgan, that's beating the bank. That's why you still see him doing well because there's not as much pressure up there.
yeah, him and Stephen Browning are like the
Stephen
two at the
Browning, you got
top there.
Wesley Strader, you got a bunch of guys actually right in your backyard, man, that are just really hardcore, really good junk fishermen. And
And it also kind of, I mean, I think it also kind of opened up bank fishing too in a way where, back in the day when you're beating a bank, you're beating stuff that you could see. That's basically
yeah,
all you're throwing at. But and correct me if I'm wrong, Adrian, but now you could actually go down a bank and you're seeing stuff out in front of you. You're able to see stuff that might be on the outside of where you normally would be actually throwing the other direction at your visible targets. Well, now you can still fish down the bank, but it's kind of opening up a whole new world of seeing where these fish might be that you might never even knew they were actually 40 foot off the bank in front of the boat casting with the boat versus hitting targets on the bank.
yeah. It's
So
funny, man. I'll tell you a quick story. So I had a buddy of mine about about 4 years ago. He had Garmin Panoptics, and I'm a Lowrance guy. I run all Lowrance electronics. Um, well, he put a Garmin on a boat that I sold to him. He's like, Adrian, man, I just left the James River, and I caught all of my bass on forward-facing sonar on cypress trees. And I'm like, dude, you're out of your freaking mind, man. Like, that's not possible. Like, I literally told him like go pound sand that it wasn't true, right? Well, he would literally this is 4 years ago, right? And you guys know really in the last 2 years it exploded. So this is before it really got popular. And that's truth. Like literally, you can go up to a boat dock and say they're spawning, or go up to a cypress tree and say that they're spawning. You can literally pan to that tree, and he may be spawning right on one corner. And if you make that pitch and he doesn't bite you on the first cast without forward facing sonar, you're not going to cast there again. But
No.
now all of a sudden you follow up, you pitch there 2 or 3 times, and betting bass a lot of times they don't bite on the first cast. You got
Mhm.
to agitate them. You got to make that fish really want to defend that area. And now you're able to do that. So not only is it helping guys offshore, but it's also helping them shallow guys too that want to utilize it.
Right. Now with how do you know, or like do you have like a time limit in your head, like when you see fish on your forward facing sonar, or if you're throwing with the Lowrance, you got the active target. How long are you throwing at some fish to before you like, all right, I gotta leave, because I know I've been caught myself
Oh yeah,
just staring at them and like, I see you down there. You can
yeah,
just hit it. Come on. I
I
mean,
yeah,
just kind of been caught in that moment where am I staying here too long? Should I move on, or should
yeah.
I give it another couple
right,
minutes to see if the bite actually happens?
Yeah. So I mean, really, it's another tool, right?
Yeah.
And I know we got a lot of stuff to talk about, and the last thing I want to do is sit here and talk about something that's literally been blowing up on social media,
Yeah.
about the negativity, some positives, this and that. But the thing about forward facing sonar is it's another tool, right? As a fisherman, and I don't even not even as a competitive fisherman, but as a guy that likes to reel fish in. Okay, I'm gonna have forward facing sonar because I like to get bites, I like to catch fish, and it literally is making you better. The
Yeah.
best part about forward facing sonar is it allows you to know the mood of the fish, right? So there are a lot of bodies of water out there that I consider there to be a lot of trash. And by trash, I don't mean, trash bags or socks or, floating debris. I'm talking about different fish that make it tough to distinguish what's a bass and what's not a bass. Um, but if I see what I feel like are fish reacting to the baits that I'm throwing, a lot of times they are going to be bass.
Right.
A lot of the what I consider trash fish, your drum, your catfish, your carp, they're not going to relate, or they're not going to actually respond to certain baits that you throw. So for me, if I feel like it's an area that they're bass and they're not biting, I may give it, 5, 10, 15 minutes, go through the cycle, but I'm going to come back
Right.
because I know there might be a feeding window. So it
Right.
really just helps you be able to break down water faster and stay in productive water.
Yeah.
Right. Now, we seen a video with you and your other housemates that that we seen that you crushed them. What was it on? Oh shoot. I want to say Saratoga or something like that. And you had Mark Daniel Jr. with you, but or in the boat with you, and you just was just crushing it on them. And so, but the let's talk a little bit about the camaraderie about the house
Yeah.
that's going on in that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, no, man. Hey, that's I mean, everybody on here and you guys included, you've got a couple buddies that are like, dude, you can literally call up at any time of the day and know that they're going to be there for you. They're going to have your back. Well,
Yeah,
I've got my core group of guys that I have locally that are, childhood friends that I, went to school with. And then I got my guys on the road. And that's, that's Jacob, that's Mark, that's DC. And dude, you put four of us together, and we're all competitive, right? So of course we all want to beat one another,
yeah,
and then all of a sudden you throw a little, little side money here or there. We just tend to have a really good time. I mean, you got to remember, whenever we're bass fishing, I mean, we're literally on the road from February to September. So we spend a very large portion of time with one another, and we try to have fun.
yeah.
And
Oh, and y'all definitely do. I enjoy watching y'all. Norman and I, we talked about it. Every time we see a video that has all of y'all kind of just being rambunctious and stuff, Norman and I's out there on the boat chit chatting about it and just cutting up, just laughing like, man, that'd be one heck of a crew. In
uh,
which we talked to you, what was it, 2 years ago at ICAST and stuff like that, and we actually stayed at the same hotel with Mark Daniels Jr. And we hollered at him as we were, because his room was just a couple down from us, and so he was just out there, and so we was talking to him, and he says, "Man, I hate to cut you short, but I left all my clothes except for my jersey back at the house, so he was having to go to the store and uh,
I
and
think
go
I
get
remember
brand
that
new
too.
clothes."
Yeah, we're like, Mark, how can you walk out of the house without all your clothes? I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Hey, I'm not gonna lie. If it wasn't for my wife, I'd probably do the same thing.
But we did kind of throw you underneath the bus, Adrian. Well, the next day we seen him over there at the Guggen booth or something like that, and we told him that you said that he still had the sticker on the back of his pants. Just to
Hey, I got a question though, Adrian. And this is, there's not many of your videos that I miss. I love to watch them. One thing because of the camaraderie you guys have,
Yeah, yeah,
it's just
sure.
fun to watch. And that's not something that gets seen. Now in the age of social media, there's a lot of different anglers out there that's doing very similar videos to what you guys do. So the people could actually see what goes on, kind of behind the scenes. But I want to talk about your little game you got going on with the flip pong or whatever. Uh,
Yeah.
that is, I tell you what. First of all, most of the time when you're doing that, I pretty much laugh from start to finish because you guys are so hilarious. Almost like the bitter beer face when you drink whatever you're drinking. That
Oh, dude.
I don't even want to think how awful that must taste. But my question on that is, who came up with that? Who thought of that? That's insane.
Honestly, I think it was DC's cameraman. So Brett, he came up with it, and it's funny because he actually tried getting us to play this game like 2 years ago, and we're like, dude, this is the last thing we want to do, man. Like, let's just play a game of ping pong, or let's do this or do that. And but he's been telling us like about this, and we're like, you know what? If you get it all, set it up. We're gonna get ahead. We'll film it all, see what it does, and dude, we have a freaking awesome time doing it. So now it's one of them things we just like every single time we have a tournament. Like that's the first thing we're wanting to do is get ahead and play this game. But freaking Jacob, man, Jacob's got a weird way of like making up his own rules so he wins. Like I swear, like everybody knows how to play beer pong on here. Probably. I mean, if you don't, I mean, it's a game that, of course, I played a lot in college. But yeah, dude, he just makes up rules, and it's like last minute. I'm like, bro, that's not how you do this, and he ends up winning. So
But I tell you what, though, that's what makes the video for viewers like us that's watching it. That's what makes it fun because just the going back and forth between you.
yeah, I get pissed off. I get mad.
But that's a competitive end of you coming out of it.
Yeah,
so,
That's why we love what we do is because we're competitive and we want to win no matter what we're doing, right?
yeah, facts.
That's insane,
have
dude.
y'all ever tried like playing beer pong, but instead of playing with the ping pong, like having like a little flipping jig, and whoever flips it into the cup and stuff instead of bouncing the ping pong.
No, we never tried it. We got, dude. I mean, it's neat though, man. It's that's just one thing that that we do, and honestly, we joke around all the time. If we could actually like not edit half the stuff out of these videos and just let it just run, I mean, we'd probably lose some sponsors, honestly, because there's some language that probably we lose. But it's really cool, man, and it's nice to have guys that have your back,
Yeah,
not only on the water, off the water, but then also that you can bounce information off of too, because there's new techniques coming out all the time, and different nuances and new baits and little tricks, and when you have a core group of guys that you can rely on that's going to tell you the truth, it allows you to become a better angler, and
yeah.
I really feel like we all help one another.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one thing. Like, because I remember seeing some videos. At first, it's just of y'all just cutting up in the garage, just while y'all are fixing y'all's rods and tackle and stuff like that. Y'all are just cutting up, messing with each other. But then you can kind of see where it turns to where it's all right. Let's talk some business and this let's talk about like just kind of what y'all are seeing. Not really. I mean, because uh, some people like ask because like Norman and I would go out and people were like, "Are you saying like where you're going and stuff like that?" And we're like, "No, all I mean, if I talk to you, Adrian, you and we're on Chickamauga, and I say, hey, I'm catching them on flats that are in between 12 to 14 feet, and I'm smashing them." And so then that's all really that you need to know because I need to look for flats that's 12, 14 feet deep and
Yeah.
stuff. So,
It's
um,
it can be difficult, and we ran into this issue before at the house that definitely caused some tension, right? I mean, of course, everything doesn't get filmed, but there are certain times that you're going to roll up to a body of water, and you know that there's going to be something that's really unique and that
yeah,
can't be duplicated, right? And it may be, for an example, you know, let's try. Let me try to think. So Smith Lake, right? DC won it off of. He won it off of the spillway. So they draw current. You know, he won it off of that. That's a unique spot, right? So if you find something that's unique like that, we've all grown to trust one another to where, hey, I found this in practice. I'm sorry, guys. I feel really good about it, but it can't be duplicated, and
yeah,
that's fine. But there's other times when you roll up to a body of water and say the bass aren't supposed to be spawning, but all of a sudden Mark Daniels goes shallow and he throws a floating worm, and he has all these big spawners coming up for his floating worm.
yeah,
Now that's something that you can run with throughout the whole lake. So there's certain scenarios that I feel like that we respect one another, because where you have to, because the last thing you want to do as an angler is to jeopardize your chances in winning a tournament.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen. It's going to happen many more times moving forward. So we really work together well, and I feel like we kind of learn as we go. Because, like I said, there's definitely been some confrontations and some heated arguments over certain things. But I feel like as we mature, not only as anglers but as friends, things are just gonna keep on riding and hopefully get smoother.
yeah. Now, when was kind of like turning a little bit, kind of. We might ask you some more questions, especially once the viewers start really asking questions about the house. But
Yeah,
now you fished the classic once, right?
yeah.
And then you fished the Redcrest. Was it 3 or 4 times?
You
Uh,
fished for three, and you're qualified for four because the one hasn't came up yet. This coming.
yeah. Okay.
Right,
Yeah. So
right,
you know more about me than I know.
right.
Damn, Norm, that's
We
good.
stay on top of y'all.
Yeah.
But is there a different? I mean, because both of them are the Super Bowls and each of the programs and
Yo,
stuff
yeah.
like that. Is there a difference? Did you feel a difference in between like going from the classic to like fishing Redcrest, or is it kind of the level, like playing field? It's still the same kind of atmosphere, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I mean, straight up, man. And the one thing you guys are gonna learn about me, if you don't already know, that I'm a straight shooter, right? So like, I'll tell you how it is. You can't compare anything to the Bassmasters Classic yet. I competed in one Bassmasters Classic, and it's something I'll never forget. I mean, you roll up, and it's during the week, and you look up at the crowd, as you're taking off, and there's thousands of people there. We don't have that yet at Major League Fishing. I don't know if we'll get to that point.
Right.
But no, I mean, absolutely. I feel like the hype around the classic is definitely drastically more than there is around
Yeah.
Redcrest. But the thing about Major League Fishing is, we're still relatively new. I mean, even though Major League Fishing has been around for a lot of years, the Bass Pro Tour is only on year 4. So I think it's
Yeah, there's
only
still a lot of room to grow for the Bass
yeah,
Pro Tour,
yeah,
and then I believe that it's going to. And I think one thing that I really like about the Bass Pro Tour, than like Bassmasters, is I do like the fact of the quick release that y'all
yeah,
weigh, get them
sure,
gone.
yeah,
Because quality care for the fish, and I've seen that y'all that like, all right, I pulled this bass out of 30 foot of water, that all right, I know that I need to take care of this fish, and I've seen to where y'all put them in the live well to kind of let them kind of get back, and then y'all have released them.
Yeah.
But I think the quality of care is a whole lot better on the Bass Pro Tour than it is. And I'm not trying to bash
No, no.
Bassmasters by no
Yeah.
means, but I think that how quick that y'all get them back in the water has been very essential too. Like when y'all come to Chickamauga, that I mean, just this is just my perspective of what I've seen. There's less dead fish or bass that I see floating after y'all leave than I do the Bassmasters.
Yeah. No, I mean, I mean, that's going to happen, right?
Yeah,
I'll tell you right now, and I'm not going to sit here and bash anybody, but like I said, I'm a straight shooter, so I tell you how it is. The numbers on bass when they consider, okay, my live release rate is at say 90% or 99% or whatever they want to call that. You guys know, okay? You roll up, you've got your 5 bass, you roll up to the tanks, you're looking at them in your weigh-in bag, you throw your little oxygenator in there, and you may not have one that's looking good or whatever, and you're just really trying to, you got Rejuvenate or you got
yeah,
THG juice, you got something in there trying to really get them to go good. You're hoping once you give them to the bump guy, that fish just flickers, right? If it just
yeah.
breathes, you
That's
see
all
its
they
gill
want.
move. That's all you
Yeah,
want. And now, if that fish gets weighed in, it gets weighed. Say all of a sudden that gill flares and it gets weighed in as a live fish. That fish is not surviving, and you and I know that. So there are a lot of bass that are in that state that get weighed in as a live bass. When in reality, you and I know it's not going to be.
yeah. It's not going to survive the truck ride or the boat
No.
ride out.
And a lot of these tournaments, and especially these days, right? Like we're starting to catch bigger and more large bass. Technology
Yeah,
is allowing us to do that. And a lot of these open water fish are deep water fish, and those are the hardest fish to keep alive.
Yeah.
So I firmly believe that our method is going to prolong our sport. It's
yeah,
just the hard part about it is everybody grew up boxing their fish, right? And
yeah,
everybody's used to that. Like everybody wants to get ahead and show them off to their buddies when they catch a 7 or 8 pounder or catch their lunker bass at a tournament,
yeah.
and I'm not gonna lie, my first 2 years it felt so weird catching a 5 pounder and literally watching it like releasing it back in the water and just like watching it float away. Like you're in this tournament and you're just letting these bass go. But
Yeah,
I've come to realize, that's the best thing we've got going, and
yeah.
we really need to stay true to that, no matter what anybody says, because that's really what's going to keep our fisheries the way they are.
Yeah. Now going from the rule change last year to the way it was this past season, where 2 years ago you're able to basically you had a size limit like either 12, 14 inches depending on what body of water you're fishing, but you're able to catch everything, weigh them and release them. Going to actually a catch and release 5 fish limit this year. Do you kind of like the 5 fish limit with the Bass Pro Tour as it was this year, or would you rather the way it was in years past?
So there's a lot less stress with a 5 fish limit, wet catch weigh release, than there is catch them, as many as you can. And the thing is, a lot of times in a traditional 5 fish limit tournament, you can literally say the tournament was 8 hours long. You can literally suck for 7.5 hours, right? You roll up on a one stretch of boat docks, you catch 5 4 pounders, you weigh in 20 pounds. All of a sudden, everybody thinks, man, you had a banner day. You did great. You got, 20 pounds. But in reality, no, you really sucked the majority of the day.
Yeah,
Well, in the old format, you had to be on your toes from the time they blasted you off to the times they said lines out, and
yeah,
that put a lot of stress on you
Yeah.
because you had guys like Dustin and guys like Jacob and guys like I mean guys that were just constantly reeling them in, Otafos, to where you need to reel them into, right? So I think the 5 fish limit format I feel like it doesn't really showcase the best angler. I do think the best angler gets showcased more and catch as many as you can
Yeah.
because it's hard to generate bites, and the best guy knows how to generate bites, and even in tough situations.
I
Yeah,
Um,
mean, 'cause
I was
I
gonna say
still
that.
enjoyed I still enjoyed watching Wheeler go and crack over 100 of them on the on that last day. I mean, he had them locked in
yeah,
when he done that. And I don't know. I mean, he probably could still be sitting there right now, still catching them how he was doing it.
probably, man.
Yeah,
But I mean, but also, I mean, but y'all had that quite a few times. I mean, not just talking about Jacob, but I can. I'm trying to think of who it was. But y'all had there was a guy that pulled up into like this back of this creek, and I can just remember it's like every cast he was just bringing in.
I think you're probably talking about Edwin, and it was in
yeah, that
Redcrest.
was Edwin
Yeah,
Evers.
yeah,
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 and the Redcrest, wasn't it?
Yeah, Redcrest.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
that was
And
in.
he had to sit down because he said, "I'm just tired. My arms can't."
He was actually starting to get cramps in his arms and his hands and his
Yeah,
fingers.
That's a good
yeah. So
problem to
I
have.
mean,
Right. I was
but
going to ask you though, how does your approach change though? Like going from the old rules where you go out and all you know is you just need to catch them and keep reeling them in, fish after fish, and now you have to actually go for, say, a typical 5 fish limit. You know, go after basically five big ones, just like you would in,
Traditional
everybody knows it
tournament.
as. So
Yeah.
how does that kind of change your approach to the day?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there okay, I'm not gonna lie. There are tournaments where it drastically changes, right? To where, you may incorporate some bigger baits. You may, fish areas that, you're not gonna get a lot of bites, but you're gonna, get the right bites. But I'm gonna tell you, I would say the majority of tournaments are going to get one from a guy that's generating the most bites.
Right.
And like, and I know, like, on like the statistics side, like, I know, like, they ran, different tournaments, whether it would be a 5 fish limit format or if it was catch all of them that you could. A lot of times it was the same winner. So I do think, a lot of times the guy that finds the best quality, a lot of times catches the most too.
Right.
Um, but I can tell you, like, for me, I have had tournaments where I was able to pick up a big bait, pick up, a glide bait, or like Berkeley came out with that call shad. I mean, in Redcrest, that's pretty much all I threw. I sight fished and I threw that call shad. So there's different things that you can maybe throw now that in the back of your mind that you can generate bigger quality bites, and maybe you are surpassing some of them smaller just keepers. Um, but I don't think it changed as much as most people thought.
Okay.
right now we got a question. Has winning a derby changed your approach to the future tournaments?
Um, you know, it's tough. The stars. So a quick backstory. Before I answer this question. So my first ever tournament that I ever fished, it was a AAA level tournament. It was a Rayovac. It was on Lake Champlain. I drove up to Lake Champlain. I won that tournament. I was 20 years old, right? It's been 13 or like 12. It's been 12 years since I won another tournament, and that was on Cayuga. So, and I'm not going to say that I didn't fish to win in a lot of these tournaments that I fished, because I did. I fished to win these tournaments. It's just hard to put yourself in that position. So I don't know if it's really going to change much. I feel like I'm still going to continue to fish the way I have fished. I just feel like I'm not going to say it was bad luck, because everybody's going to have their time or their moment, or is going to have a bad week or good week, whatever it be. But I really hope it's not going to take another 12 years to win a tournament,
I don't.
because it was pretty
Norman and
freaking
I,
awesome to hoist that trophy. I'm not
yeah.
going
Well, Norman and I, we've talked about this, especially after you won, and I was like, I think that because you could kind of see that you could see it in your face. It was determined that you had that. He was like, "All right, I'm getting it," and it was. It's almost like the switch. You flip the switch, and it's games on. This is gonna be
Dude,
it.
I remember, like I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. But I remember Cayuga like it was yesterday. I was literally trolling past 5 pounders because I told myself going into the actual tournament, which was those 2 days, that I didn't want to weigh in a 5 pounder. Like I literally, I didn't want to stop on a bass unless it was 5.5 plus. So I remember, the first period I rolled up and I caught two really good ones, and then like I went like 2.5 hours without even fishing for a bass because I just knew in the back of my mind I needed to catch really, really big ones.
Right,
And it's weird because it's like, yeah, there's certain times where you're really dialed in. And I really felt like I was really dialed in that week. I love sight fishing. I love sight fishing for smallmouth. It really comes down to whoever's going to work the hardest. And we talked about it a little bit. I mean, just 2 hours ago, I was out commercial fishing. And that's some of the hardest. That's probably the hardest profession you can possibly do is commercial fisherman. I'm hats off to anybody that has ever commercial fished before because it is not an easy job. And
right.
and sight fishing for smallmouth using a flogger, it's hard work too. And I felt like I outworked a lot of people in that tournament, and I felt like that's why you can't see it, but I've got a cardboard check that says 100 grand on it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah,
Um,
I was gonna tell you something though, because talking about your win and like I say, every tournament I don't have it on all day long, but I do watch, especially towards the end. I usually put it on for the last hour just to watch
Oh
each
yeah,
day. And of
that's
course,
when
I
the
root for
drama
that.
normally
I
ends.
root for your house. I mean, all four of you, and I know all of you as far as talking to y'all before. So, but I'm going to tell you a little bit of a, and I don't know if I should put this out to the world or not, but
Whatever, let's do it.
right when
yeah,
when DC won the Redcrest,
Yep.
at the very end when they were doing the boats out and they're interviewing him and DC's there bawling on the boat, crying his eyes out, and I was up there in the recliner in the living room. My wife's in watching TV in the bedroom. Well, with DC crying and all, I'm actually sitting out there in the recliner, bawling my eyes out watching this.
Yep.
yeah,
Because I mean, I can just imagine with the pressure on DC there for the last hour, the pressure on me, hoping that he would pull this thing off.
Yep.
And I'm watching him crying. I'm like, and my wife comes running out of the bedroom, because she hears me, and she thinks, and she comes out, "Are you all right? What's going on? What's going on?" I said, "No, Dustin just won the Red Crest." So she says, "Oh, you got to be kidding me! Who did I mean?" But that's just a little bit of a funny side story. But
Oh,
anyway,
dude, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you right now. I
to show
mean,
you that my
this.
emotional side of me.
Oh, hey, I would lie to you if I told you I didn't watch a trophy ceremony or a winning moment and didn't get emotional. Like, if any of you guys haven't been to, say, a Bassmasters Classic or a Red Crest, if you're sitting in that stage and you're watching the winning moment, it's emotional. And
yeah,
and I straight up, like, I'm a softie, right? I've got a big heart. Like, I get emotional every single time. And there's a reason why Brandon Polinick has not missed one. If you guys watch Brandon Polinick's YouTube
yeah,
videos, or if you just
Yeah,
follow his social media, he tries every single elite event. Doesn't matter where it's at, doesn't matter what day he gets eliminated, he goes to that trophy ceremony, which is the winning moment. And that drives him. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense because it makes you want it more than you can put to words. And
yeah,
it's a source of motivation. And I mean, clearly it's working for him because he's won AOI, he's doing phenomenal over there.
yeah,
But when that was first brought to my attention, I was like, man, that's actually pretty special.
yeah,
And anybody that's in that position, and especially you as a hardcore fan of the house of Dustin. You almost consider to be like a friend.
Yeah,
Just because you know him so well through social, even though you may not have him on speed dial on your phone. We're able to get close to our fans with social media these days, and tell our stories and share our stories, that's what this sport's all about, man. It's about
yeah,
sharing our stories, having fun moments, and creating lifelong friends. Because let me just tell you, outdoor people, it doesn't matter if you're in fishing, if you're hunting, there's a bunch of kick-ass people out there, and
yeah. There is.
a lot of them are outdoorsmen.
And the thing about it is just like how they're very approachable, just like how we was able to come up to you at ICAST here 2 years ago and just start chit chatting, and you started talking to us like you've known us for years,
Yep.
and but to go kind of go like to the winning moment and stuff like what you was talking about. Norman and I were able to be part of the media team and stuff for the Bassmaster Classic this year in Knoxville, and but when Gussie, I mean, everybody thought Gussie was just going to blow it out of the water the
Yep.
last day. And then when he came in, I mean, he didn't even have a full limit.
He had two bass,
And
right?
Yeah, two bass.
yeah, and so, but that moment when he came out on the stage and they said that that he only had a few bass, and then you're like, oh my goodness, he done this. I mean, he had the lead, he had the bite and everything.
Yep.
So it got the fans to feel like,
Big time.
oh man. And then you're like, then when he pulled it off, I mean, then it was just like everybody just exploded just
Yeah.
because, I mean, he didn't mean for it to be that close. I mean,
And
if he
you
had
know,
a choice, he'd rather get 5 fish catching that. Was it 20 pounds of what he was averaging
Yeah, this
a
wasn't
day?
this wasn't no FanDuel rigged sports bet, and I mean that was that was what happened. That's what transpired in that tournament, and
and Jeff even said he thought he lost it. He thought he
Yeah,
blew it. Even
everybody inside
right.
that tournament thought they didn't win, right?
yeah,
So nobody in that tournament really knew the outcome, and that was so cool as an angler. None of them knew, right? Because everybody thought Gussie was going to win, and then all of a sudden Gussie stubs his foot, so he doesn't think he wins. Nobody really caught a big bag on that final day.
no,
So, and even like going back, like the last classic that Christie won, so 2 years ago, it's like
yeah.
same thing, right? Like we really thought Kyle Welcher won, and then
I thought he was going to win it,
And then
and then what? He
Stetson
lost about
caught,
2 ounces.
yeah, and Stetson caught a really big bag, and then Christie kind of comes out of nowhere. So that is what's really cool about our sport is you really never know what's going to happen. I mean, dude, you got to remember we're fishing for fish that got brains, right? And they can make a decision on what the heck they want to bite that day, or if they want to leave or go. So it's a really cool thing, and they're a fun fish to chase. And it's pretty wild that here we are making a living and talking
Yeah.
about it.
I think
Right.
bass are one of the smartest fish out there too.
Yeah,
Bass are smart.
I agree.
Yeah.
To kind of go back on to your win, can you kind of explain? Because you said that it was like 12 years in between wins, but uh, to the guys that fish the locals, they're like, well, I go out there and I at least win one or two a month. Um, but they don't really take in, and they think of like KVD and stuff like that. He had a phenomenal career. I mean, that was once in a lifetime type deal that we get to see somebody to do that, and they don't really think that y'all only really have what 9 or 10 events that y'all have to where the guys that are like the weekend angler tournaments, fishermen, to where they're going out 4 or 5 times a month. I mean, just depends on really. They don't realize that they got more tournaments than what you all do.
More
I,
opportunity.
I tell you what,
Right.
before Adrian gets into kind of replying on that, I'll tell you a quick little side story to that too. Is about 6 years ago. I mean, everybody out there, including BASS at the time, They were saying, and it was well said, there's nothing that's ever going to duplicate what KVD has done with his career. And that was like 6 years ago. And now we got Jacob Wheeler that came onto the scene. And of course, you always have to say the word arguably at this point, uh, is the best in the world right now. And he is on pace to basically, if not exceed, at least duplicate what KVD done in his career as far as the championships, the wins, just how he crushed it as a pro. So, and that's kind of how the sport cycles too, is because, like I said, 6 years ago, everybody, that's the first thing you say is nobody's ever going to duplicate that. And now we have Wheeler that came along, and he possibly is young enough where he could, if not kind of exceed that, at least stay on pace to have the career with the stats that KVD had.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's every sport has the rising star, right? It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what sport it is, and bass fishing is a sport, and right now, Jacob's that guy, and 5 years from now, he could or he may or may not be that guy, but for as long as for as long as that guy's in this sport, he's gonna kick freaking butt, man. I mean,
Yeah.
dude,
I,
you just talk to him and just kind of how he processes information, clues. It's kind of one of a kind, and to kind of go back to like club level tournaments versus our bigger national tournaments. It's a different playing field, like straight up. Like, and you guys know, like, what's the big trail on Chickamauga? What is it? It's
the CBA.
the CBAs.
Yeah.
So those CBAs are equivalent to what I consider the Bass Pro Tour, right? You have the Bass Pro Tour where we have 80 guys, but there's probably, I'd say, realistically 10 or 15 of them that you almost know are going to be inside that top 10. Well, the
Right.
CBAs where you're at, there's a half a dozen guys where you're like, dude, if he's not fishing first, second, or third, you know, something crazy happened
Yeah.
because there's a half a dozen guys that are absolute hammers, and it's like that in any club around the country. You have a few guys that are just that dominant. But the problem is with the Bass Pro Tour is you've got 10 or 15 guys that are really, really good, but the other guys are like almost as good. It's like these guys are here, and then it's like these guys are right here. So it's like it's so hard to separate yourself, and that's what's so incredible of what a few of the anglers have done. Otafo, Dustin kind of winning a bunch of tournaments. Jacob doing so well. It's hard to separate yourself and to watch them guys be able to do that in this era is honestly pretty freaking impressive.
Yeah.
Uh, and I just I don't know when the next win's going to come, but I'm just going to fish my tail off, and hopefully another one does happen soon.
We believe it's going to happen. I mean,
I do
just
too. I do too.
uh,
There's something that kind of is like a chip on your shoulder, like, man, dude, like, okay, one person that sticks out to mind, really, okay, for me is Gerald Swindle, right? Gerald Swindle had a phenomenal career, and I said had. He's still
still
fishing.
does.
He
Yeah.
he has a phenomenal
Yeah.
career, right? But the guy hasn't won a national tournament.
No.
Okay, you got a guy like okay, Cody Myers on the Bass Pro Tour. Okay, Cody and I, we kind of came up similar time. At one point in time, he had like the record for the most consecutive cuts made out of anybody, right? But he
Right.
hasn't won a tournament. So there's a lot of extremely, extremely talented fishermen out there that deserve to win, but they just haven't been able to do that yet. And
Yeah.
until it actually happens, man, there's like a monkey on your back that you just can't get off. And when it finally does happen, there is a lot of pressure that comes off. And
But those two guys, though, are probably the most consistent
oh,
fishermen that day in and day out.
for
That I
sure.
mean, that I mean, both of them. I mean, to be able to do. what they do with making the cuts and stuff
Yep.
like that, and then finishing uh, up high, like within the
The
top 20
AOY
of
standings.
the
Yeah.
A. Right? I mean, they are consistent, even though they haven't won. They are consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you've got, you got your home run hitters, your guys that are going to, have top tens, but then they're also going to, finish in the bottom of the pack the next week. And then you've got your guys that are consistent anglers. And, I really feel like, for me, I mean, I feel like I was one of those consistent anglers, another one, that comes to mind is Zach Burge. Zach Burge, yeah, he's won a couple tournaments, but he's another guy that's always really consistent. Um, that doesn't win as much as you think would win. And there's a ton of guys out there like that. But I really hope a few of them guys do get their opportunity, because I feel like I'm not going to say your career's not solidified uh, until you win a tournament, but it does definitely help knowing
Right.
that, hey, man, I paid my dues. I had my opportunity. I won a national tournament.
Well, I just say this: I want to be by the stage when Gerald wins one, because there ain't no telling what he's going to say.
Dude, listen, none. Yeah, he's one of those guys where anytime he comes up on stage, everybody's videotaping.
Everybody pays attention.
Yeah, you don't know what that man's gonna say.
We got a question from one of our viewers. With you being a northeastern, living up in the northeastern, do you prefer to fish for smallmouth or do you prefer to fish for largemouth?
So, me, I really do enjoy smallmouth fishing. It's something that, I just love how they fight. It's one of them things where, I feel like over the years they're just getting bigger and bigger. Like you're seeing a lot of really big bass being caught. So I would have to say smallmouth. But I I went up to Lake Champlain and I ran 70 miles on a smallmouth fishery to go catch largemouth. So it's not that I won't fish for one over the other. If I was going out fun fishing though, I'd probably say I'd go smallmouth fishing. But it's hard, man, because then it's like, dude, can I go throw a frog with 60-pound braid or 65-pound braid and go jack them, in a bunch of good stuff? I mean, I don't know. I like catching them all, man.
Yeah. Now there's not a lot of professional anglers from the state of New Jersey, and there's only two that comes to mind right off the top of my head. Of course, yourself and Ike and Ellie. But and you were saying that as a kid growing up, of course, there's not a lot of bass fishing like there's in a lot of other states in New Jersey. But when you were getting ready to go to college, did you go to college with the mindset to get on their fishing team, or did that
So
play out as far as when did you first decide that yeah, this is what I want to do? I want to try to live my dream and become a professional angler, coming from the state of New Jersey.
yeah, so it's funny, man, and I'll tell you how fast this all transpired. So the summer, let me see how this works here. Okay, the summer of 2008, right? It was my senior year of high school. I was in the middle of this sand wash. I was in a 14-foot john boat with a tiller on the back of it, trolling motor, literally trolling bombers around on 6-foot ugly sticks, right? And like out in the middle of this lake, like every once in a while, the rods would load up and I'd reel them in. Like I was trolling, right? Like I'm a saltwater guy. That's what I do. I troll, right? And I met this guy, and this guy he calls me over, and I literally told this story, not that long ago, but he calls me over and he's like, "Man, come look at this fish I just caught," and he shows it to me, and I'm like thinking it's a 10-pounder, but in reality it was like a six something, and he caught it on a jig, and I'm like, dude, well, I don't know what a jig is, right? So that and then from that point on he kind of took me under his wing, from that summer leading up to like kind of the end of my high school there, because I was going into college in 2009. And in 2009, that's when I got into school. I was there on tennis scholarship. They came out with a collegiate bass fishing program. So the first year it came out was my first year in college. So timing was kind of right when it came down to that. And I established a club along with a buddy of mine, Troy Eikenberry. We started a bass fishing club. And we just started fishing some of them bass tournaments, and that's how it all happened. Like literally, and so in 2008, I knew absolutely nothing about bass fishing, and then 2011, so 3 years later, I won a Rayovac, and then the next year it qualified me to fish the FLW Tour. So like in 4 years, I went from trolling a bomber around on a 6 foot ugly stick to fishing professional.
Yeah, man. I tell you what, though, and again, to all of our viewers that's watching that might not, fish on a daily basis or what have you, that is very impressive when you think about it because, to be at the level where you are today and to know that how fast you went from not really even knowing how to bass fish to winning on the biggest stage in bass fishing. Uh, I mean, that's just insane. You got to think about it. Most of your professional bass anglers have been fishing since they were knee high to a toad,
Oh, for sure.
since they were old enough to be able to pick up a rod and reel.
Yeah.
You know,
I think the biggest thing, man, and this goes for anything in life, like literally anything, is you got to be a sponge. Like you literally got to take in any information that you can. Don't hold your head over anybody that you meet at a gas station or you meet on a lake. Like you can learn something from anybody out here. Period. And
Yeah.
and it goes for everything. And I feel like, my buddies joke around with me all the time because like I'll be out on a guide trip and I'll be asking my clients like, "Hey, what would you do?" Or what like what do you want to throw? And a lot of times I just want to like kind of hear on how different people are processing different situations.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times I may play dumb, but that's me taking in all the information and making my own decision with whatever I want that outcome to be. And I
Right.
feel like that's how I've been my whole life. And I feel like that's a really good trait to have.
Yeah.
And I just keep on trying to learn new things, and so far it's working. But I know next year something new is going to come out, and
Yeah.
Mark Daniels is going to call me up and be like, "Hey, dude, you see this new worm we got to throw?" And I might throw it or shake it the right way, and maybe I'll win another tournament.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
awesome.
we got Ryan Gotsey says, Adrian, what is your favorite fall bait?
If I were to pick one fall bait, it's either gonna be a top. Oh man, I probably if I it depends on. Okay, there's different like times in the fall, where they get on different things, and a lot of that is water, is water temperature based. But they tend to really really get on bait hard. And I'm gonna have to pick a top water.
Yeah.
I love throwing a buzz bait, and a buzz bait in the fall catches better than average
There's
fish.
nothing like especially having something explode on that buzz
Uh,
bait. Psh, whew.
I'd probably say a buzz bait in the fall.
Now,
Yeah.
now, when you throw a buzzbait, Adrian, do you leave the skirt on, or do you do it wheeler style and take that skirt off and put a toad on the backside of it?
So I personally fish. So Jacob, he makes that buzz bait. It's Accent Lures buzz bait. He throws a half ounce a lot with a toad on it. I honestly love their 5/16ths, and I'll put a little crawl on the back of it, and I'll leave the skirt on there. And that's personally what I like. I like something a little bit smaller, something I can reel a little bit faster, cover a little bit more water. But that's just personal preference.
Yeah.
Now, we're almost hitting the hour mark, so we won't keep you too much longer, brother. Um, who? Another question is who's the biggest cut up in the house?
Oh, I mean, you got to say DC, but see, DC, we he goes on his little rant. See, DC, when he catches them, he's in a great mood. When he doesn't catch them, the guy literally like is mad at the world, wants to quit bass fishing, hates the lake. Like he always has an excuse. Um, so I'd have to throw old Sizzle under the bus.
Now, who came up with the idea of the tutu?
Oh, I think that was some random YouTube follower. I don't know if it was on Mark's channel or if it was on Dustin's channel, but Yeah, so basically, we have all these bets, and for you guys that don't follow, we've got different bets that we do all the time, and if you don't do what you're supposed to do, you suffer a consequence. Well, there was some random guy that came up to the lake and said, "Man, DC didn't do what he's supposed to do. He should wear a pink tutu." So the next tournament, we showed up with a pink tutu.
Yeah,
Now,
and he had,
I was
and
gonna say,
he
did you have to go to MLF to get those to get it? Because you wear them at the beginning of the tournament, and then you take it off.
Oh yeah.
Right when you start fishing. Did you have to get that approved by MLF, or did you know they'd be good with?
No, they're good with it, man. They honestly, the league loves the league honestly loves it, right? Because we draw a lot of attention to the different things that we do. Um, And at the end of the day, we're there, not only to fish a bass tournament, but to put on a show. And
yeah,
so when we're out there, being goofy, having fun, busting each other's chops, they eat it up, and they allow us to do a lot of things.
yeah. Now, what would you say is your kind of go to lake? Do you like the TVA lakes, or do you like a Highland Reservoir, or are you kind of like a Florida kind of guy that's like some hot and shallow?
Yeah. So it's funny, man. Like I've I've done, and it's weird because like I've had just as many top tens in the state of Florida as I have like up north.
Right,
There's something that's about them shallow lakes in Florida that I just drive with, and I've had some really good tournaments down there. But if I were to pick one, the TVA was kind of a thorn on my side for a little while, and it wasn't because I really didn't understand side scan, or I honestly didn't have somebody to really be able to be like, hey, Adrian, this is what you need to be looking for. Once you kind of figure that out. So it took me a little bit of time to really
right,
figure out, Tennessee River. Um, but what I like so much about northern bodies of water and natural lakes is, you put in the time, you find a boulder, that boulder is going to be there for as long as there's water in that lake.
right.
You put in your time down there in the state of Florida, and you find a bed of hydrilla. 3 weeks
It's
later that
gone
could be
next week.
gone, and it may never grow there again for as long as you fish that body of water.
Right.
So I really do like northern bodies of water, natural lakes, um, because you as long as you're good at storing waypoints and not losing them like I've done in the past, you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Now, you said earlier. I want to kind of go back. What what was your mindset like when you won the event here this past year? Were you did because it looked like to us like you was on it, that you was determined on it. Was that really what your mind was really thinking, or was that just kind of that's what we were kind of hoping?
Yeah. So this is like in a nutshell. This is kind of how that tournament went down. So in practice, and if you watch any of my YouTube videos, like I've got some pretty good videos up on basically just highlighting that whole week. Like practice and first day of
Right,
competition throughout the whole championship or whatever. So if you want to get ahead and see that, go hop over there. It's just Adrian Avena Fishing. But that tournament kind of transpired throughout the week. And you guys got to remember, these tournaments aren't a Saturday or aren't a Tuesday
right,
night. These tournaments are 6 days long. So a lot of things that you find during practice may not be relevant come championship day, which is 6 days later. So that particular tournament, I found some spawning fish. Never made a cast for them. Marked a bunch of them, but the weather wasn't conducive in finding the deep ones. So a lot of the ones that I was finding were the same ones everybody else was finding.
right.
So as the week progressed, there was one day, and it was one of the qualifying days, that the sun came out, it slicked off. I got on that flogger, and I just put in like 4 hours of just nonstop, like like head in the cone, on my knees, on my stomach, trolling it around, like really just trying to find the deep ones. And I was able to find some really deep spawners, and that's what won me that tournament. Now, you just don't know like how things are going to work out. Of course, when you get to the championship day, anybody can catch a 7, 8, or 9 pounder. There's giants that live in Cayuga. um, so I really wasn't comfortable. And of course, Jacob, he was like 2 or 4 ounces behind me going into championship day. So like I never really thought like I knew the chances of winning were definitely there, but like you don't really know what's going to happen until they say it's lines out, and as I fished that day, I just fished for big ones. I had some really deep ones marked that I was able to catch, and some other ones that I wasn't able to catch earlier in the week, and it just worked out.
Now, what goes through your mind during the day? I mean, during the championship day, when you have a wheeler that's really hot on your tails,
Yeah,
on your tail, and also a good friend. He's part of your household, but the caliber he is too,
yeah,
and he
Were you
is.
thinking that you wish that he didn't put the plug in the boat?
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
He's probably the
Hey,
guy
I,
that you wish, even though you want to, if you can't do it, you want him to do it, or
yeah,
Mark, or DC to do it. But knowing he's on hot on your heels, and he's probably the one guy that you don't want to see in the championship round behind you.
yeah.
What's
You
kind of going
know,
through your mind when you know how close he
no,
is?
and that's true, and like when it comes down to it, but when you do win a tournament, and like it happened, right? And in that top 10, it was, of course, myself, I won the tournament, but you had Jacob Wheeler, #1 angler in the world. Kevin Van Dam was also inside that top 10. Um, you had Alton Jones Jr. that was inside that top 10. So there were some of the hottest anglers in the world
Right
today
on your hip. Yeah,
inside that top 10 that were all on my heels. I
yeah,
mean, I had the target on my back because I was leading going into that final day. But I wouldn't have wanted it any other way,
Yeah,
and that's why I chose to fish over at Major League Fishing, because I firmly believe that, don't get me wrong, okay, over at Bass, there are some phenomenal anglers, and there are some guys that I consider that are inside the top 10 in the world. However, the caliber of anglers that we have over at Major League Fishing, now when we're talking about just throughout the whole entire group, I feel like that's where the best guys are, as a whole. And that's where I want to compete. I want to know whenever I do win a tournament, or if I do win a tournament, that I truly beat the best guys in the world. And that week, it all happened.
yeah,
And there's really nothing else that you can say other than there's that saying that I hated for a really long time because it never actually happened for me. But they say when it's your time, it's your time. And that week on Cayuga was my time.
yeah.
yeah,
When it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, we got two more questions that I want from our viewers, and then which we got quite a few of them, but we just kind of just went on down some rabbit holes.
Hey, that's all right. That's all
But
right.
well, two more questions.
Cool.
We got one that says, "What's the newest technique that you are excited to try and master?"
Honestly, tight lining. I feel like there's a lot of suspended fish out there, that we're really able now to utilize with forward facing sonar. Um, and really just that in general, like them suspended fish. Like I tend to throw a jerk bait a lot more than I ever have, because that's another bait that I feel like allows you to be able to catch them bass. But there's something to tight lining, and it's a technique that was used in Tennessee for a long time that guys are now finally starting to really see the benefit. You're seeing a lot of tournaments won by it. I fished Gunnersville and I finished third, and I caught a lot of my fish tight lining, and I would have to say that would be the technique.
Yeah. Um, Nancy Zipper says, asked. about next year's schedule. Is there an event that you're looking forward to on the schedule?
So that's a really good question because it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like there's always a lake that really stands out to you, but a lot of times that's the lake that you do worst at. And so like I've come to realize, like this year, prime example, right? So Cayuga, of course, was number one on my list, and yeah, I got super fortunate that everything kind of transpired and everything aligned, and I was able to do really well in that tournament. Well, the other one was the tournament right before that, and that was on Cayuga, or not Cayuga. That was on Gunnersville, and I personally, believe it or not, been fishing professionally for 12 years now. I have never made a cast on Gunnersville
Really?
until that week, and I finished third. So I wasn't looking forward to it. But if you were to tell me which one am I actually looking forward to, it would have to be the James River. The James River is a tidal river. It's a place that I've fished quite a few times, and it's got a little brackish in there, so it's got a little hint of salt. So maybe I can kind of jive with it a little bit. But there's some other good ones on the schedule, but I'd have to say the James.
Sounds good. Well, Adrian, we're not going to keep you much longer, but when we finish this, if you can just hold on for just a second.
Yeah.
But guys, thank you for coming on. We had over 1,100 viewers watching this during this hour and 11 minutes. So we want to say thank you for watching. We do want to announce that we are on every platform for podcast platform now except for Apple. I'm still waiting on their okay or whatever. So make sure you go to like Spotify, iHeartRadio, uh, Amazon Music, or whatever. Look us up, follow us, and let's grow this podcast on the podcast platforms. But Adrian, we want to say thank you so much for coming on, brother, and talking to us. Um,
And
sorry we had a little technical issues earlier, but so glad that we did get to have you on here, brother. So thank
and
you.
where can people look you up to, Adrian, as far as your social media platforms?
Yeah, I mean, just search Adrian Avena fishing. I mean, I've got same thing. I've got pretty much all of them. Including YouTube. We kind of went a little hard this year shooting some of them events, but yeah, man, just holler at me,
Yes.
and I'll also have Jersey Boy charters. So if you ever want to go out and I know we got a lot of freshwater people on here, but if you ever want to go out and do some saltwater fishing, you can actually hop in the boat with me, and we'll
Heck
go ahead
yeah.
and go do that. So just let us know. Keep in touch. I appreciate everybody's support. It really meant a lot. Especially when you're doing well. There's a lot of times there's so many messages and calls you can't even get back to everybody. So that really means a lot, especially from just a kid from Jersey that is trying to trace this dream of being a bass fisherman. But
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Well, Adrian, again, we appreciate it, and guys, we're gonna get off here. This fat boy is hungry. I've been up for 24 hours, so get something to eat and then go to sleep. So, guys,
Yes.
again, we thank y'all for coming on. Hope to see you out on the water and live the passion.
Go the passion, tight lines, guys.